The call came out of nowhere. The photographer whispered, "Sir, you need to see something, and please don't tell your son yet." Imagine your child's wedding, perfect, joyful, then one phone call shatters everything. By the next sunset, I would learn the truth about my daughter-in-law and how deeply she betrayed him and me. What would you do if love turned out to be a lie? Before I go on, let me say thank you. If you're here listening, it means more than you know. Some stories sit heavy on the heart, and sharing them feels a little lighter when someone's beside you. Tell me where you're listening from, and if these life lessons speak to you, go ahead and subscribe. Your support helps an old man keep telling the truth, one story at a time. You know, when you get older, life settles into a rhythm. Quiet mornings, a mug warming your hands, joints reminding you the body keeps its own calendar, whether you like it or not. My name is Arthur Reynolds, 70 years old, retired shop teacher. Hands rough from decades guiding teenagers through sawdust and stubborn nails, but steady enough to hold a coffee cup and a memory without shaking. I live in Santa Mesa, California, a town where folks still wave without thinking, where the hardware store clerk remembers your preferred screws and the park clock never ran right. But no one ever bothered fixing it because imperfections make a place honest. After my wife Linda passed 10 years ago, it's just been me and the routines we built. I learned to cook more than eggs. I kept her rose bushes alive, even if half of them always lean like they can't decide which sun to follow. And each evening, I'd settle into my porch chair, watching the sky fall behind lemon trees like time apologizing for leaving again. My boy Michael has always been my pride. An engineer in Phoenix. Steady, smart, and good in a way you don't teach. It's born into a person. He calls every Sunday just like he promised his mother. You don't break promises in this family. Not if you were raised right. So when he told me he found the one, my heart, well, it expanded in my chest like a breath I'd forgotten to exhale. Lauren Hayes, bright smile, polished voice, and confidence sharp enough to cut glass. She spoke about investments and markets like I speak about oak grain and dovetail joints. Two different worlds, same kind of passion. She looked at my son like the world made sense when he walked in. And for a widower who prayed his boy would find real love, that was more than enough. Their wedding was something out of a magazine. A garden venue in Scottsdale, lanterns glowing like tiny stars. I wore the same suit Linda picked for our 40th anniversary. Felt her hand on my arm as I walked in, as if she whispered, "Look at us. We did good." I stood in the front row, chest lifted, heart full, watched Michael blink back tears as Lauren walked toward him. A young man holding his future with trembling fingers like I once did. I remembered whispering to an old fishing buddy, "Our kids outran us, didn't they?" He nodded, smiling in that way only fathers do when pride aches a little. The reception was a whirl of toasts, bright lights, and camera flashes. Her family spared no expense. Silver cutlery, music floating like silk, champagne poured as if it grew from a tap in the ground. I even danced once, careful, slow. The knees complain, but joy carries you further than joints ever could. That night, I returned to my hotel room, loosened my tie, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. I whispered into that quiet room, "Linda, our boy, is in good hands." And for months after, I believed it. I tended the roses, drank coffee on the porch, met the same old-timers at the diner, arguing about fishing lures, like we were senators settling world debates. Every now and then, Michael sent a photo, a desert hike, wine tastings, fancy dinners where candles softened the whole world around them. He looked happy, and seeing him happy, that's a father's victory lap. But what if that happiness was built on secrets? I remember thinking one afternoon, sun soft across my porch rail, maybe life finally reached its gentler phase. A chapter of quiet pride, watching my son build a family the way I once did. I wiped dust off my old workshop bench, breathing in the scent of cedar in memory. Thought about crafting them a cedar jewelry box for their first anniversary. Tradition carved in wood and love. At night, I'd pull the curtains slow, glance at the yard, and whisper a simple prayer. Keep him safe. Let him be loved. Let him stay kind. And I meant it with every breath in my chest. But life doesn't always warn you when the ground shifts. Sometimes the storm slides in quiet, like a shadow moving across your porch, soft as dust settling on framed memories. I didn't know it yet, but those peaceful evenings, those slow exhaled prayers, they were the last real calm before the world tipped. Because just when an old man begins to believe his battles are done, life reminds him peace can be borrowed, not guaranteed. And that peace was about to end. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. Funny how the biggest breaks in life rarely come with thunder. Just a phone vibrating on the counter and a voice carrying something heavy behind it. "Mr. Reynolds, it's Colin, the wedding photographer." His tone was tight, tired. "I need you to come in, please. And don't tell your son yet." My stomach didn't drop. It tightened the way it does when a man who's lived long enough suddenly smells trouble. "Is Michael all right?" Silence, then a soft exhale. "Yes, your son is fine. But sir, there's something you need to see." He asked me to come alone. That word alone, it carried weight like a hammer in the hand. I grabbed my oldest cardigan, the one with the loose button, and drove. Phoenix traffic crawled, each red light punching seconds into my ribs. I didn't know what I was afraid of. Only that fear had pulled up a chair beside me. Colin's studio lights were dim, camera lenses scattered. His beard scruffy, eyes red like someone who'd been arguing with sleep and losing. "Thank you for coming," he murmured. He didn't make small talk. No coffee offer, no polite preface. He slid his laptop toward me. "Just look." The first photo came up. My daughter, Lauren, in her wedding gown, but not on the dance floor, not beside my son. She stood near the service exit, half hidden, arms wrapped around a man in a suit, his hand resting at the small of her back. The way a man touches someone who belongs to him. My breath left me slow. That wasn't a greeting. That wasn't family affection. "That isn't Michael," I whispered. Colin nodded, voice low. "His name is Ethan Ward. He's her cousin, supposedly, but also her business partner." Business partner. Those two words had teeth. More photos, timestamps. Lauren disappearing again during speeches. Ethan slipping out minutes later. Her return. Hair slightly messy. Makeup checked in a hurry. I stayed silent. Men my age. We don't shout when we bleed. We just bleed quieter. "Mr. Reynolds," Colin continued. "They've secretly run a financial firm for years, targeting older investors, vulnerable ones." He laid out documents, company filings, transfers, names. "My mother," he whispered, voice breaking. "She trusted them. She lost everything, and she died thinking she failed herself." He looked at me with hollow eyes. "She didn't fail. They stole." I sat back, Let the truth settle like sawdust in the lungs, and then the worst blow. Sir, from what I found, it looks like you were next. The room felt colder, not with fear, with clarity. Lauren didn't marry my son for love. She married into a target list. My boy was a doorway. I was the vault. I closed my hands together, knuckles pale, not shaking, steadying like I do before making a cut in wood that can't be undone. Colin watched me, expecting collapse. But when a man has already buried the love of his life, pain hits different. It doesn't shatter you, it shapes you. Does my son know? No, Colin said. And I didn't want him hearing it first from me. Good a man deserves one more night of peace before his world changes. Show me everything, I said softly. And he did. Security footage, bank records, fake investment statements, elderly names, some familiar from the wedding, faces smiling in celebration now tied to deception. When the last photo faded, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply breathed in and out until the air didn't tremble in my chest anymore. My son will not be destroyed by this, I whispered, and I will not let her take one more thing from him or from anyone. Not anger, not revenge, just resolution. I stood up slow, feeling every year I've lived and every year I have left sharpen into purpose. Colin. Swallowed. Mr. Reynolds, what are you going to do? I looked at the exit door, the same path she slipped through on her wedding night, and in a voice quiet enough to be mistaken for surrender, but steady enough to be steel, I answered, I'm going to stay silent for now, but not for long. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break. But inside me, something clicked into place. Firm, final, unmovable. And that's when I knew silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. When I got home that night, I didn't turn on a single light. The house felt different. Not unfamiliar, just heavier. Like the walls knew what I'd seen. Like the air itself understood something sacred had been cracked. I hung my keys on the hook, same as always. Yet, even that tiny click sounded final, as if closing a chapter I hadn't realized I was finishing. I sat at the kitchen table, hands resting flat, breathing steady, too steady, the way you do when your heart hasn't caught up to your mind yet. No tears, no outburst, just silence settling into my bones like cold winter air. I stared into the dim room, listening to nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the slow tick of the old wall clock. Each second landing like a reminder life refuses to pause, even when you wish it would. My son's happiness, the light I'd held on to for months, suddenly felt fragile, like a candle too close to a window in a drafty room. I pushed back from the table, walked to the porch, and lowered myself into my rocking chair. The wood groaned under age, mine and its own. The night sky stretched wide above the lemon trees, stars soft as whispers. Linda used to sit right beside me in that very spot, legs tucked up in a blanket when the breeze came. She'd hum without realizing it, tapping her thumb on her cup to some tune the world couldn't hear. I touched the ring on my keychain, running my thumb over the metal until it warmed under my skin. Linda, I breathed more than spoke. I wish you were here. I wish you could help me hold him through this. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it sits still, a quiet lump behind your ribs, pressing every time you inhale. I remembered Michael as a boy, hair sticking up in every direction after sleep. Shoes always untied, no matter how many times I showed him double knots, running up the driveway shouting, "Dad, watch this," before doing something dangerous and entirely unnecessary. Linda used to laugh and say he didn't inherit the caution gene. He loved boldly then, the same way he loved that woman. And now that bold heart was waiting to be broken by truth. Some nights you don't cry because you're strong. You don't cry because, if you start, you might not stop. I rose again, restless, poured myself tea. I had no intention of drinking, and sat staring at the steam curling upward, as if trying to escape, too. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. "Love you, Dad. Hope you're doing okay." I stared at the screen, typed, deleted, typed again, deleted again. Every response felt too heavy or too hollow. So I wrote simply, "Love you, too, son." Sometimes love is protecting someone from the truth until they're ready to face it. The next morning, I tried out of habit more than hunger to make breakfast. Toast sat untouched. Coffee went cold before I ever reached for it. I wandered outside, hose in hand, watering roses that didn't need watering. The petals hung heavy, drinking more than they required, just like I was holding more than I should. The neighbor's cat strutted over, tail high, like he owned the whole street. I scratched behind his ear, because sometimes your hands need to comfort something when your heart can't yet comfort itself. Inside again, I picked up a silver frame from my bookshelf, our family photo. Michael in his cap and gown, Linda's head resting on my shoulder. My arm wrapped around both of them like nothing could ever break that circle. I ran my thumb across the glass, slow and gentle. "You didn't do anything wrong," I whispered to my son's smiling face. "You just loved the wrong person." The ache inside me didn't rage. It settled like dust after sandpaper, smooth as a rough board. When I finally went to bed that night, sleep didn't come. The ceiling stared back, and somewhere after midnight, my breathing changed. Not heavier, cleaner, more certain. And that's when I sat up, feet planted on the floor. No rush, no panic, just purpose filling the space where hurt used to sit. A man learns eventually that some storms aren't meant to drown him. They're meant to carve a new river through the land he thought he knew. I took a long breath, hands steady on my knees, and in the quiet darkness of that room, I began to think very carefully. Not about suffering, not revenge, about protecting what I love, about doing it with grace. And with time, grief had finished its work. Resolve had taken its place. That night, I sharpened. I woke before sunrise the next morning. No alarm, just that quiet pull inside a man when life stops asking him to feel and starts asking him to act. I splashed water on my face, stared into the mirror at a man shaped by years. Loss, love, and lessons time refuses to teach gently. Not broken, not vengeful, just certain. The kettle hissed softly. Coffee grounds bloomed rich and dark. I moved slow, not out of age, but intention. In my shop class, I used to tell the kids, "You rush, you ruin." When you're shaping wood or truth or justice, speed is the enemy of precision. So I sat at my small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug, letting dawn settle into my bones. Then I called Colin. He answered like he'd been waiting for it, voice raw around the edges. "I'm ready," I told him. 2 words. No anger, just steady ground beneath them. He exhaled, relief scraping through the speaker. "We'll do it the right way, sir." "Arthur," I said quietly, "if you're going to walk into a storm with a man, titles fall away. We met at a small cafe just outside Phoenix, the kind where the coffee tastes slightly burnt, but honesty feels thick in the air. Colin wasn't alone. A woman sat with him, calm expression, clear eyes, the kind that see through excuses like glass. Detective Renee Porter, she introduced herself. Financial crimes, elder exploitation. That phrase hit like a nail driven slow and deep. I breathed once, not fear, confirmation. She laid out files, patterns, movement of money. Victims who trusted too easily and paid for it, with everything they'd saved from lives harder than most could understand. Mr. Reynolds, she said, this isn't just marital betrayal. It's organized fraud, and we believe she intends to target you. I nodded once. A lifetime of steady gestures behind that single movement. What do you need from me? She studied me. Most young people expect age to mean fragility, but wisdom earns a different kind of spine. You pretend to trust her, she said. You let her talk, let her think she's winning, and when she overreaches, I murmured, you're there to listen. She gave a small nod. Exactly. Colin slid an envelope across the table. Records, screenshots, signatures. The paper felt heavier than its weight, like holding truth before it hardens into consequence. We laid out steps, quiet ones, clean ones. No shouting, no chaos, just patience, sharpening. Driving home later, desert wind whispering across the highway. I whispered back, she thinks she married a shield. But I've been a shelter all my life, and shelter doesn't bow to wolves. When I reached home, I walked to my writing desk. The old oak one where Linda signed birthday cards and Michael learned to balance a checkbook, where life happened in pencil smudges and good intentions. I opened a notebook, not to rant, to record. Names, dates, moments when her questions about my pension were too curious, her praise too perfectly placed. Patterns, red flags I once mistook for warmth. I put on my reading glasses, my hands steady as I wrote. Purpose steadies a man better than pride ever could. Then I called Michael. We spoke about rain and football and weekend plans. He asked if I'd tried that new diner near the house yet. I told him I was proud of him. I didn't mention her, not yet. Truth, like glue, only holds when timing is right. After the call, I looked at Linda's photo. She smiled back, eyes soft and still certain. You raised a stubborn one, I murmured. But I'll do this right. That night, I ironed a shirt, not because anyone demanded it, but because dignity is armor that never wrinkles when worn from within. I polished my shoes, the leather catching lamplight like quiet determination. I paused at the doorway before bed, hand on the frame, whispering, for him. Always for him. The photographer called, and everything changed. But change can be a blessing, wearing a rough coat. The stage was set, the roles were chosen, and all I had to do was wait for truth to speak louder than lies ever could. I arrived early. Older men tend to, not from impatience, but because we understand the rhythm of life. When you're on the edge of truth, you don't rush the moment. You let it breathe. Her office sat on the second floor of a glass box building. All shine, no soul, fake plants, louder perfume than integrity, the kind of decor built to distract, not comfort. I wore a simple pressed shirt, polished shoes, and the quiet confidence of a man who's seen storms bigger than this. She smiled when she saw me. Too wide, too rehearsed. Arthur, you came. Her voice was sugar with a chemical aftertaste. I did, I replied softly. She guided me to a small conference table, folders already laid out, pens aligned like soldiers. Control, that's what she liked or thought she had. Today's the big step, she chirped. You're going to feel so relieved after this. Interesting choice of word. I nodded, playing the calm old man she'd mistaken me for. She slid papers toward me. Transfer authorizations, account access forms, fine print thinner than her loyalty. Just sign here, here, and here, she said, so we can reposition your retirement for maximum gain. Her tone softened, fake concern wrapped in a bow. You've worked so hard your whole life, Arthur. You deserve to rest now. Let us handle it for you. I picked up the pen, turned it slowly between my fingers. Before I sign, I murmured, I'd like you to explain it to me again, step by step. Her eyes brightened like a wolf spotting lamb. Of course, she cooed. This process is seamless. Your funds move overseas temporarily. Then we circulate them through a private investor pool. Returns appear within 90 days. And those returns, I asked quietly, they come from where exactly? She didn't hesitate. Confidence makes fools bold. From new investor funds, initially, she said, it's a growth cycle. Eventually, everything balances. My hand paused mid-turn. There it was, confession, arrogant, casual, dripping with self-assurance. I looked at her, long and slow, not angry, just measuring the moment. And my son, I asked, did you move his money the same way? You should, too. Trust the final nail. I set the pen down neatly, deliberately. She frowned. Is something wrong? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I slid my chair back, crossed my hands calmly on the table, and whispered, I think we're done here. Her expression twisted. Fear, anger, recognition of a game she was suddenly losing. You agreed, she hissed. You promised to move forward. I changed my mind. You can't do that. I just did. Her voice sharpened like broken glass. Arthur, do you understand what you're risking? I nodded slowly. Yes. My dignity, and I don't gamble that. Before she could speak again, the door opened. Detective Porter stepped in, Colin beside her, a recording device in hand. Uniformed officers close behind. Lauren Brooks, the detective said calmly, you're under arrest for financial fraud, elder exploitation, and securities violations. Her face drained, then flushed, then hardened, predator cornered, teeth bared. You set me up, she spat. I met her eyes, held them steady as stone. No, I said gently. You set yourself up when you chose greed over people who trusted you. She lunged to grab her phone. Officers stopped her mid. Handcuffs clicked, sharp and final. As they led her away, she threw one last glare at me. You think this ends with me? I let silence answer. Some truths don't need breath to stand tall. When they were gone, I exhaled. Slow, deep, steady. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it arrives in a quiet room with steady hands and open eyes. Colin placed a hand on my shoulder. Your son will be proud of you, I swallowed, throat tight. I didn't do it to be a hero, I whispered. I did it so my boy wouldn't spend his life wondering why the world turned cruel. Outside, the sun was warm. Not triumphant, just kind. And I realized something. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sighs. I walked to my car, opened the door, and sat for a moment with my hand on the steering wheel. In that silence, I finally felt free. I sit on my porch most evenings now. Same old rocking chair. Same view of the street where kids still race bicycles and neighbors wave like life hasn't changed at all. Funny thing about truth, it doesn't explode your world all at once. It unthreads it slow, patient, one stitch at a time. And sometimes that's how you rebuild it, too. Michael visits on Sundays, not out of fear or obligation, but gratitude and love. And that quiet bond only shared between a father and son who have walked through fire and refused to let it burn them bitter. He sits on the steps, coffee in hand, sometimes silent, sometimes talking about nothing. And somehow that nothing feels like everything. I don't look at him with pity for what he went through. I look with pride at who he stayed through it. Strength isn't loud. It isn't fists or fury. It's the soft choice to remain yourself even when betrayal tries to carve pieces out of you. Sometimes I think of her not to hate, just to understand how someone can lose themselves so badly chasing money they'll never feel safe holding. You can't build a future out of stolen tomorrows. So she sits with consequences now, and I sit with peace. Fair trade. People ask me if I ever regret being quiet as long as I was. Truth is, no. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes silence is the season before justice blooms. And when it did, it came steady and clean. Not in anger, but in truth. I remember the title of this story. 6 months after my son's wedding, evidence exposed the truth. Midway through it all, I whispered that line to myself, not as a reminder of damage, but as a promise of clarity. And clarity always comes if you wait with courage. I don't wish her pain. I don't hope she suffers. I hope she learns. Because learning is the only real salvation any of us ever get. Maybe that's what aging really gives us. Not softness, not weakness, but the wisdom to know justice without cruelty and strength without shouting. So if you take anything from me, let it be this. Patience isn't weakness. Trusting isn't foolishness. And when respect is lost, you can reclaim it quietly, steadily, and with your dignity intact. And after all of it, sleep comes easier now. Peace sits in my chest like a warm stone. And that, I've learned, is worth more than all the money in the world. If you stood by me through this story, thank you. Tell me in the comments. Would you confront, or would you wait quietly like I did? And if you'd like to hear more stories from an old voice with a few miles on it, go ahead and subscribe.